Hello, I'm Kenza Gray, co-owner and curator of Grey Area Gallery, and welcome to our latest exhibition, Slow Season. Slow Season features 7 artists: Lacey Law, Jake Halls, Corvidae, otherwise known as Will Sparling, Jed Desbro, Benjamin Gillard, Sunaina Patel, and Harry Newman. We chose these 7 artists not only for their amazing work and their technical ability. They're all artists that we fell in love with the pieces they were creating and their tattoo work. But also we wanted to choose 7 diverse working artists. So from people focusing more on tattooing itself and showing that as an art versus some of the other artists who their pieces are really different to what their tattoo work is. And I think that this shows the audience who are coming into the exhibition the diversity and range within the tattoo world and within the artwork that they're creating out of their tattooing. When talking with some of the artists, I think that many of them weren't seeing themselves as artists who should be in this sort of exhibition. And one of which originally was Benjamin Gillard. We came up with this idea of an installation of his pieces that he wanted to display. So he was working on a back piece for a client, and in this process he filmed it and he created this beautiful color study and he takes photographs. And it seemed really fitting to create this installation of this artwork called A Month of Sundays. I think it's a great starting place for this exhibition because it really intertwines the art and the tattooing. So for people who are coming into this exhibition from the tattoo world, it really places them into an art gallery. It's putting the equipment in a case, it's showing it as an installation. But then for people who are coming at it from the gallery and the art side, it's allowing them into the tattoo world. So we get to see Benjamin actually tattooing, we get to get up close to some of the equipment, see the process in the photographs. And I think it really situates the exhibition right from the start for people. In creating the installation, it was quite important to us to have all of the aspects of the process. So from the equipment in the case and the photographs that I've already mentioned, we also really wanted to have the stencil on the wall so people can understand how we go from the drawing and the concept to the stencil to the body. As you continue past the installation at the start, you come to the video and the color study. So this is the pinnacle of the installation. This is really where people can see up close his actual artwork. So I think the piece really shows off his skill and his influence. So we're seeing that traditional Japanese coming into his work. But I think it's really beautiful to see the bold line work and this use of the red contrasted with the black. And then to see it actually being translated onto the client's back. And in the video, we see the color study alongside. So as Ben's working and going back to it and really seeing how this piece, which now is hung up on the wall and seen as the artwork that it deserves to be seen as, but seeing it as a tool in the video is how Ben's seeing it. And I think it's really great to situate that for people, but also to actually see the beautiful detail and skill that Ben has in his craft. So along with Benjamin's work that I've just discussed, we wanted the viewer to walk in and see the contrasting side of that. So work that isn't totally tattoo based. So we created this area in the middle with Lacey Law's woodcut prints. Lacey Law is, as I've just mentioned, a woodcut printer as well as a tattooist. So her pieces are intricately carved out of wood and printed. We wanted to also show the actual wood block alongside these so people could understand how this is done. Lacey is a Norfolk-based artist who is highly influenced by the high ornate and romantic nostalgia, along with motifs found in the natural world. All of this is shown in these 3 woodcuts that we featured in the exhibition. One new piece that she created for this exhibition is the piece behind me, Because of You. And I think that this is a super strong work in its composition and its detail. It was a really standout work in the exhibition, so we wanted to pop it right in the middle here. So when you walk in with this light above and the dark wall that we painted behind, you're really drawn into it to come and look at the little lines And then I think when a visitor realizes it's cut out of wood and sees the tools and understands that it's done by hand, I think that it really allows people to understand the detail that goes into the work. And this has been an interesting conversation to have with people, how that's reflected in the other side of these artists' work, which is the tattooing, where you have to be detailed, precise, and having no room for errors, or at least being able to cover up errors. And I think that that translates into woodcut so beautifully. On the second wall behind me, featuring Lacey's works, we have these two pieces. Comfort and Joy, the smaller piece behind me, was also a new block for this exhibition. And it was really great to actually have that block featured just in the case to the side of it. So people could go between the two and look at the lines and compare. And people realizing that with a woodcut, you have to carve it in reverse as well. So people sort of imagining how that process is done. And again, having the tools in front so people can see that this is a hand-carved piece, which we don't see as much anymore, that people embracing woodcut prints. I think it's a lot more common to see lino prints and working with these more forgiving materials. Understanding how wood is in the composition, people are understanding it can splinter, or, again, if you make that mistake, you have to work with it. Comfort and Joy has been a really popular piece in this exhibition, and I think, again, this idea of the slow season and coming into those winter months when people just want to hibernate and wait for the summer to come back. So it's a piece that people are really resonating with. So it's been a really interesting section to have these conversations with people around the theme of slow season, but also around these skills that these artists have outside of tattooing. On the wall behind me, we have pieces by the artist Jake Halls. So up until recently, Jake had been working with fine line illustrative black work tattoo art. Behind me, you can see the very vivid and bright pieces that he's submitted for the exhibition. Growing up and throughout his tattooing career, he's been influenced a lot by video games, artists such as Julie Bell and Frank Frazetta. And these fantastical and very bright artworks had been the influence on him, but it hadn't been seeping through into his tattooing. So this exhibition coincided with him beginning to show a lot more of that side of his artwork. So for the first time in this exhibition, he is displaying his flash sheets that are more colourful and show the fantasy side of his art. I think that what's really drawing people into Jake's works is that from a distance you can see this detail. But again, you need to get up close to see the fine line and the cross-hatching that creates the shading, or the tiny details of the ink. It's been really amazing to see his pieces in person. And most art doesn't translate onto images, but his really does not. The absolute mastery that he has of the ink and the fine line is really impressive to see. I wanted to highlight these two pieces, so Fantasy Flash #1 and Wonderland Flash. The first one is a piece created entirely out of biro, and this is a bit more traditionally what Jake is known for, this really fine line work. And to, again, think about this idea that creating something like this out of biro allows for no error, and every line is concise and thought through, and this cross-hatching that I mentioned earlier, creating this beautiful shading across the work, but then contrasted with where his work is moving a bit more, so in Wonderland Flash, these beautiful vivid colours and really stylized and exaggerated characters that we see really brings the two aspects together to show the contrast in Jake's work, but this underlying fantasy and detail that we really see in his work. Along the back wall, we featured the really bright and vivid paintings by Harry Newman. So Harry's tattooing is quite different to the paintings that you see behind me, and we really wanted to highlight that for people, especially the people coming knowing Harry from his tattooing. People were coming to the exhibition having a lot of work done by these artists, and it was really interesting to see them seeing his paintings. The vivid colours and the fun subject matters have really been capturing people. So in the four pieces that are behind me, we see this character of the cat sort of playing out different scenes. And then in the one to my left here, we see this character of, is it a cat? Is it a crocodile? Is it a combination of the two? And I think that this really fun imagery has really been drawing people in. I wanted to pick out the painting behind me by Harry, and it's called That Guy. I think this is an amazing example of his skill and the way in which he plays with these colours and textures. So we see this huge, vast sky at the top here, which allows the eye the space to sort of fall down to the bottom, in which there is a lot going on. Your eye is jumping around from the beautiful deep reds of these flowers to the neon pool creeping in the side here. And then we see the characters taking up center in very different ways. You know, we've got the, I don't want to say relaxed, but laying down cat down here, and the one standing up here sort of pushing our eye in different directions. It's a really great painting for his combination of colors. So in the little details, we have neon oranges coming through, neon pinks, but then the subtle greens and blues. This just allows this painting to have juxtapositions throughout. So in one aspect, your eye is relaxed, but then it's brought back out through the vibrancy of the colors. I also wanted to pick up on the textures. So the brush strokes, we see how quickly they're created through the textures that the paint creates as it falls. It's confident and yet quick. And I just think that this contrasts a lot of the other works in the room. So in the detail that tattoo artists have to have and the concentration, I think that there's a lot more freedom in Harry's paintings. He's allowing himself to play with the brush strokes and sort of correct mistakes and go with how the paint is falling on the paper. It really is a standout work, and we were happy to have it on the back here. So again, when you walk in, you can see it past a lot of the other walls and pieces in the room, and these colors sort of draw the visitor around. And again, when we're thinking about curation of an exhibition, especially with 7 artists who are creating such different works, you need the pieces to sort of play with each other. And I think that using this back wall for Harry's bright pieces, like I say, just sort of draws a visitor naturally round. As you continue round, we wanted to contrast what I've just spoken about with Harry's colourful and vibrant paintings with the work by Jed Desborough. So as you can see, his is all black and white works. And flanking the work in the middle, we have his bodysuit pieces. So he cites his influences as his love of 80s samurai films, spaghetti westerns, anime, and music. And we see all of this influence playing out in the works behind me, from his cowboy-inspired pieces to his darker pieces that could be inspired by heavy metal. And then in the middle, we have a beautiful piece called 1 Year Tattooing. So it's all of the stencils from his first year of tattooing, sort of combined into this frame, showing a year's worth of work and a journey. And it's a really personal piece to him that is usually hanging in his home. And he said that a lot of these pieces are on his friends or people he's no longer in touch with, but these works sort of live on someone else. And by keeping the stencils, it's allowing this piece to sort of show and capture a moment in his life. And then I think having it in the center, flanked by these other works which are showing his tattooing that he can create for someone now, it really shows a journey of Jed's tattooing on this back wall here. It was really great to include Jed's work in the exhibition for the skill that he shows in the pieces. So when we look at a bodysuit like the ones behind me, and his composition, so again, the layout of where the motifs are falling, how he uses the contrast of, say, a rose at the top here fitting in that neck versus the snake sort of falling across the middle of her back. And I think it's really great for people from both sides, again, the tattooing world or the art world, to see these sort of prints. So it's someone working out a composition of a back, but then that again is a composition of an artwork. People have really enjoyed seeing these works. I think it allows people to see another style of tattooing to the other artists in the room, and seeing his detail in shading and the sort of layouts that he works with. It's been really great for people to engage with the pieces and see these different motifs and subject matters. Behind me, and again as you continue round the exhibition, is the piece Exhumination by Corvidae. Corvidae is hugely inspired by Japanese art, in particular ukiyo-e and Edo period prints. And when we approached him to be involved in this exhibition, he expressed his want to create a new piece, sort of really inspired by this theme of the slow season. He said his first sort of instinct was to think about these prints that he loves from Japanese woodblocks, which look at these angry spirits of people who died of starvation. And within this, he's sort of hinting at the slow season. This is a time when artists notice less work and thus tied in with this idea of less abundance. And so this was sort of the starting point of his piece behind me. And we see this figure in the center who clearly is skeleton-like. He is surrounded, however, with this abundance of bright and vivid imagery. But he is unable to see the abundance around him, and he is this imagery of the starving artist. So within this figure, Will's hinting at this idea that being a tattooist is all-consuming. But then he wanted to contrast that and fill the rest of the work with positivities, in particular positivities that come with these winter months. So down here we have all the winter food. At the top here, indicated by the lanterns, is the festivities that we experience during these months, and then symbolize other aspects of positivity, such as the cherry blossom at the top here, which in Japanese culture symbolizes a new start or a new beginning. It's a really interesting work, and having people really unpack all of the symbols and elements within it has been really great. And I think that having someone create a piece such as this for this exhibition really highlighted the aspects that we were trying to unpack, showing tattooists for their influence within the tattoo work, their artistic side, but also the theme of the slow season. Will has really brought all of that into one really impactful work. In the final section of the exhibition, we featured the work of Sunaina Patel. She's a South African Indian artist who has cited that it's always been hard to define where home is. Having lived the majority of her life in London, her pieces are very inspired by this link between the spiritual and surreal, and says that this idea of home has trickled down into her tattooing and her artworks. From a curation point of view, it was nice to end on her works and to bounce them off of, say, Corvidae's or Jed's, which sort of have these darker or heavier visual imagery used throughout. Her pieces have a whimsical and sort of airy feel to them. This is emphasized by the pieces in the middle, which are on envelopes. And again, knowing her background and this influence through the idea of where is home, she said to us that a lot of her memories of childhood are receiving letters in the post from family, and she would keep the stamps and this sort of moment of receiving something and joy that an envelope or a parcel could bring. So by transferring her work onto these, there's this beautiful link between home and your art and these visual imagery that we've grown up with and that we keep with us, be it physically or within our motifs. In her works, when we actually go and look at them closer, I think there's a real beautiful quality to the pieces and a very delicate brushwork. For example, in the wings up here, this subtle use of colour, which we don't see as much in her tattoo works, but the same motifs fall between her art and her tattooing, which I think is really great to see how someone uses the same sort of imagery, but in different ways. So people have really enjoyed looking at them and picking up their favourite elements or what is quite going on in the scene, for example, with the cow on the tree, and sort of really delving into this idea of the human essence and spirituality that she's really heavily influenced by. Contrasting her pieces on the other wall, we wanted to feature these three, which really feel a lot more connected or closely linked to her tattoo work. But then we have this beautiful, vibrant colours coming through on all of them that again feel like this combination of sort of fine art and tattoo work. Her beautiful use of shading and bold lines really make these pieces pop, and we chose them, actually a combination of two of them, to be the poster of this exhibition because again this sort of combination of art and tattooing that we really felt is embodied in these pieces. Slow Season is an exhibition that we've been thinking about putting together for a while now, and we're really happy with how it's turned out. It's been a pleasure to work with all of the artists and see the pieces they've created and brought for the exhibition. We want to thank everyone for coming to support the exhibition, and if you've seen anything in this video that stands out to you, please do reach out for more information. For now, we're closing the doors on Slow Season. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.